Hi, welcome to another Teen Pride Book Talk. My name is Lucy, and this is the program on AADL TV where each episode I take a few minutes to tell you about a young adult book that is both inclusive of and representative of folks in the LGBTQIA+ community. And the book that I would like to tell you about today is a book called Ready When You Are. And this is by Gary Lonesborough, and it was originally published in Australia. The title there was The Boy from the Mish. Gary Lonesborough grew up in a small county in New South Wales in a large Aboriginal family. And this book is about a boy named Jackson who is also part of an Aboriginal family, and he lives in a neighborhood called the Mish. So when the story starts, Jackson is talking about his girlfriend right from the onset, and he is trying to be intimate with her, but he's having trouble being excited by this. And this is sort of the norm for Jackson when he's with his girlfriend, Tesha. And he is worried that something's wrong with him. He thinks maybe my body's broken. And there's also a certain pressure for a teenage boy within the Mish. Like his friend group certainly pressures him, and they talk about it a lot, but there's a certain pressure to have a girlfriend. At the start of the book, it's the Christmas holidays. There's a break from school. Jackson has decided he's not going to go back to school. He has one more year of high school. He just isn't inspired by going to this school where he is one of three maybe Black kids. Everyone there is white. He's tired of the daily microaggressions and just having to put up with the constant racism that he experiences there. So it's the Christmas holidays, and Jackson's aunt and all of her little boys are coming to stay with him and his mother and his brother. And his aunt also brings a foster child, Tomas. Tomas is the same age just about as Jackson, maybe a year younger. He has just been in juvenile detention, and so now he's staying with Jackson's aunt as a foster child, having just been released. Jackson finds himself thinking that Tomas is pretty cute. Right away, he sort of thinks this about him, and he kind of brushes this thought aside. He doesn't really address it, but we, the readers, get a sense that it's not the first time that Jackson has had thoughts like this come into his mind. It's not entirely new. Jackson's mother really would like him to return to school. She says that he's really the first generation of Aboriginal kids who will be able to finish school. For her, it really wasn't an option. Everyone sort of dropped out around 10th grade or earlier. So she's really hoping that he will take hold of this opportunity that he's been given. And the book does a good job of portraying, outside of school even, the daily discrimination and the racism, as I said before, that Indigenous Australians face from within their own community even, and outside of it as well. And then on top of that, there's one gay student that is known at Jackson's high school. His name is Jasper, and there is a lot of unchallenged homophobic talk around Jasper. Even Jackson participates in it a little bit. We learned that in high school, Jackson was really interested in creating art. He's not really doing that much anymore. His mother is an artist, and his aunt is as well. That's one of the reasons why she comes to visit, to create this Aboriginal art. And Tomas, who's staying with them, is beginning to create a graphic novel. Writing was something that he was given as a coping mechanism, and he is supposed to be doing this daily writing. So he's creating a graphic novel, and Jackson starts to illustrate it for him. And so he and Tomas become closer and closer, better friends. Jackson introduces Tomas to his friend group. He introduces them to his men's group, which is a group of Jory elders that are there to sort of teach the younger boys about their culture and where they came from. He and Tomas start to realize that they have mutual feelings for each other, and they start to explore this. Jackson knows he has these feelings, but he just thinks, I can't be this. I cannot be this where I'm from. He and Tomas begin to get physically involved, but Jackson keeps trying to convince himself that he's straight. He thinks, I can't become Jackson, the gay kid. And so he does have, during this acceptance and this awakening, also he's in conflict within himself with this internalized homophobia, and he's trying to uncover this part of himself that he's always kept hidden, but he feels like the world he lives in doesn't have a space for that Jackson, for that self. As Jackson and Tomas start to navigate their relationship, they're kind of trying to figure out, like, what even is this? How are we connecting with one another? Jackson says something really interesting. He says there's an unspoken set of guidelines that we have about how to follow when attempting to flirt with girls, but no one's ever egged me on to flirt with a boy before. I don't know any guidelines to follow when flirting with boys. So though some of the romantic and physical feelings might be the same as what his friends have talked about with girls that they've liked, Jackson just doesn't feel like he has the knowledge of how to enter into this, and it's something that he and Tomas are exploring together. As they start to talk, they realize that they've both been feeling this way towards other boys since they were about 10 and 12. Tomas when he was 10 and Jackson when he was 12. And eventually, Jackson's friends do find out. They see him and Tomas kissing, and they are a little removed and they're angry, but it turns out that they're angry only that Jackson never really told them. His friends feel that he was keeping this side of himself hidden. Jackson also is outed to his men's group. It's a small town, it's a small group of people, and there's talk. When he starts to have conversations with his friends and his men's group about this, he realizes it's not that he was necessarily keeping it hidden from them, but he was keeping it hidden from himself as well. He's still figuring out who he is, and he doesn't know that he's ready to be able to express that openly. He and Tomas are sort of in the same place with this. Tomas is maybe a little bit more open about it, but they haven't told their parents, or in Tomas's case, his foster parent. It's something that they've had to deny themselves and deny to the people around them. And I think that this part of the story is a really important and strong part of the book. And it tells you, as Jackson's realizing, that he doesn't have to know, and he can be figuring this out privately, and he can be figuring it out bit by bit. One thing that he does realize is that as he starts to tell people, it's a constant process. And he does have this conversation with Jasper, the other gay student at his school, who overhears Jackson coming out to his former girlfriend. And Jasper shares with him the annoyance of constantly having to tell people. He says there shouldn't be any need for coming out. This is very much a culture where homophobia is real and it's pretty strong. Jackson does find that he is loved unconditionally by his mob. And what he was scared of, which was being cast aside and made fun of and scorned, this is not true at all. His slow coming out to the people who he's close to hasn't led to that, but Jackson still isn't ready to have this big coming out moment. But in being able to be more open about who he is, Jackson is also more open with Tomas, and they really start to realize how deeply they care about one another. And the way they connect with each other is really nice, and they have all the feelings of falling in love for the first time. They have that experience, and that's really a wonderful part of this book. The author, Gary Lonesborough, did grow up in a small county in New South Wales. As I said earlier, he was part of a large Aboriginal family, but he's very clear in his author's note at the end of this book that the Mish is a made-up place, and all of the characters in this book are fictional. He doesn't want anyone to think that he is attempting to speak to all First Nation experiences or to all LGBTQ experiences. And he says in some ways, Jackson's life does mirror his own. And growing up, he never encountered young adult stories about Aboriginal teens coming to terms with their sexuality and accepting who they are. And he says in his author's note, I'd like to think reading this book as a teen myself might have helped me on my journey. And I hope soon there will be many, many more books like this for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander teens and for other First Nation teens across the world. In a separate interview I read with the author, he addressed the small town feeling that you get from reading Ready When You Are. And he says that growing up in a small town, the queer people are so rare, everybody knows who they are. And I didn't want to have that label. He said, all the struggles I had as a teen made me who I am, but I would have liked to have more help, more courage, and maybe more confidence in my own skin. And now you see that this is someone who's turned to sharing stories about experiences like his with other people so that they might feel that they have more help and that they're not alone in their struggles, and that there are books, and hopefully more and more, as he said, that will start to help. So that is Ready When You Are by Gary Lonesborough, and really, in the end, this is a very tender, romantic, hopeful book about boys who are allowed to express all of their feelings, laughter, tears, love, all of it. So I hope that you give this a try. Thanks for joining me.